All right, welcome back, friends. I am, of course, Tony Toon. I am the Walrus.
And welcome back. This is Leanne Palmer, and I am your sparkly, glittery fairy.
Woo! All righty. So now we're getting into the big topic. Healthcare. I think we might touch on abortion, because they kind of go together.
Yeah, they kind of go together.
All righty, so did you want to start, or?
Okay, I'll start. Let's start with the abortion issue.
All right.
Because I think, as I have said before, you and I have talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
You and I agree to disagree for different reasons.
Yeah.
I am pro-choice to a point.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because I don't think the government belongs anywhere making any kind of health decisions for me whatsoever.
Yeah.
In any situation. My health decisions belong between me and my doctor and my partner if I have one. And a lot of the anti-abortion laws that are coming out that make no exceptions whatsoever are forgetting that there are actually life-threatening conditions that require a type of an abortion. I'm not saying that abortion should be allowed for birth control. But let's take into example I'm going to look at two examples. First, I want to look at what's called an ectopic pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
You and I have talked about this. Basically, what happens is the egg gets fertilized, and then instead of implanting inside the uterine wall where it should, it implants in the fallopian tube.
Yeah.
Which there is no room for the baby to fully develop in the fallopian tube.
Yeah.
And when found, it is very, very painful, and it hurts. And there's really no way to scale that pain if you've never been through it.
Yeah.
But the only way to correct this and save the life of the mother is to do a type of an abortion that removes the baby or the fetus from the fallopian tubes, giving that mother the chance to live and have another baby with little to minimal damage to her body. But there, from what I understand, have been no allowances for these in these no exceptions abortion rules. Now, there may be, I haven't had a chance to sit through and read all of these laws, but there's been no mention of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that may go to how the tech censorship and the media narrative look at it.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, you have what's called selective abortion.
Yeah.
And in those cases, it's because a parent or a mother is using in vitro fertilization to have a baby,
mm-hmm.
and they've implanted more embryos than they think are going to survive, and then all the embryos survive, and you have to go through and selectively abort some of those embryos so that the mom doesn't lose her life along with all of the children.
Yeah.
In that case, honestly, you shouldn't be implanting so many, I feel. You shouldn't be implanting so many embryos. When it comes to birth control. Take responsibility for your actions. You did the deed. Live up to it. Don't just say, I don't know who the dad is, I'm going to have an abortion because I don't want to have a baby. Don't say, I'm going to have an abortion because my career comes first. Or my family comes first. Well, because that child, that baby, is now a member of your family.
Yeah. I can see your arguments. My big thing is, and we kind of got into this a little bit earlier, at least I did, and I probably won't do a very good job explaining it again. But, you know, these laws that are passing in Alabama and all the other places, and in Georgia, they seem to be a counter to what we're seeing in Virginia and New York.
I would agree with that.
And I think what they're trying to do is force the issue, force the Supreme Court to take up Roe v. Wade again. And this is why, as I was talking about in the earlier video, you know, especially with gay marriage or abortion, these type of things have to be legislated. You can't just rule that it extends this way. No, it does not work that way. Because, I mean, in my opinion, the Roe v. Wade argument, that is a privacy issue, while I think the argument is weak. And the reason why I think it's weak is, how do I want to word this? Well, I mean, just a couple weeks ago, Clarence Thomas came out, Supreme Court judge, and he was talking about how the Supreme Court is going to have to take this up again, because basically they enforced Roe v. Wade, and so now everything's going through the court instead of the legislator. And, you know, of course, he talked about eugenics and all that other stuff, which I'll get into a little bit later. But I compare, because I'm pro-life, and I'm pretty staunchly pro-life. So I could say it's the moral issue of our time. It's the slavery of our time.
Right.
It's something we're going to have to figure out. And the reason why I'm pro-life is the moment the sperm fertilizes the egg, the new DNA code is written. It's developing into a human being. The mitosis begins. You can sit there and say it's a clump of cells. Well, it's a clump of cells that's going to grow into a human being.
That has a unique DNA code.
Yeah, it has a unique DNA code. That's why I kind of roll my eyes when people are like, well, don't you masturbate? You're committing mass genocide if you think abortion's murder. Like, no, that's yeah. Anyway.
I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
Just not.
But the sperm enters the egg, the mitosis begins, a new DNA code is written. The government, and this is why I don't believe in the libertarian argument of pro-choice, the government now has a moral responsibility, as it does with all citizens, to ensure life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And to ensure that the basic human rights extend to that fetus, because it's just like with slavery, it had a moral obligation to the slaves to ensure their freedom. So that's why I'm pro-life. Now, what's going on in Virginia and New York, I think we both agree, is too extreme. And
That's to the extreme.
And I would agree that the laws in Georgia and Alabama are extreme, because with these no exceptions, even though I hate to say it, I don't believe in exception for rape. people may get very mad at me.
My issue on the no exception for rape is the fact that the woman involved did not make the choice to have sex
I understand
and
that.
should not have to live with the consequences thereof. However, I do agree that there is still a separate human being that needs to be considered.
Yeah, and that's why I don't believe in an exception for it. I don't even believe in an exception for incest because then you're getting into eugenics. And, or deciding to abort a baby because you find out the baby has Down syndrome.
Okay.
And here we're getting into very dark territory. I mean, people don't want to talk about it, but yes, abortion happens in China. A lot of female fetuses are aborted.
Right.
A lot of, I'll just say it, quite simply put, a lot of mixed race children are aborted.
All over the world.
Yeah.
And that counts here in the U.S.
Yes. And I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with aborting that child just because it's mixed race, or that's a woman, or that's a male. And you could sit there and say, well, what about Down syndrome or mental retardation? You're getting into very dangerous territory. I do not have the right to say that person does not have the right to exist.
And I can agree with that. My stance is, like I said, because you go into abortion because it's mixed race, or abortion because it's female or male or whatever. That falls, for me, under abortion for birth control.
Yeah.
However, when you look at abortion in the case of incest, I have a different stance. Because having been a victim of incest,
Okay.
my stepfather told me at the age of 16 that he wanted my first child to be his, and that he was going to divorce my mother, and we would go live off and have our happy family with the baby.
Ooh boy.
You want to talk about being freaked out at 16?
Yeah.
But if I told anybody what was going on, he was going to tell my mom, and she would leave, and myself and my two brothers would all end up living on the streets, and it would be my fault.
Mm-hmm.
So very much no choice in the matter as to what was going on.
Yeah.
So you look at an actual case of incest where a father is having sex with his daughter.
Yeah.
And she is very young, say under the age of 13, and she gets pregnant before she's really even able to get pregnant. Like, she may or may not have had her first period.
Mm-hmm.
But so her body says, okay, it's good, but she hasn't quite finished developing herself. I don't think it's fair to make her go through a 9-month pregnancy when her own body hasn't finished developing and doesn't know what to do. And she is dealing with all of these conflicting feelings of being shamed for having sex out of marriage and being shamed for having sex as a kid when she had no choice in the matter.
Yeah. No, I understand that. But, I mean, again, it makes me seem like a hard ass, but it's kind of like, okay, but the child hasn't done anything.
No, and I understand that. I really do. But you really have to understand that 12-year-old...
Oh, no, I do understand.
...may not have the ability to carry that pregnancy through.
Yeah.
And you're risking her life
That's
as
true.
well as the life of the baby. And if you can allow an abortion in the case of incest where the mother is so young that she really is incapable of carrying a child or shouldn't be carrying a child, like that 9-year-old or that 6-year-old that's been in the news which I think is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
You allow that girl to have an abortion. Yes, I understand that is a completely separate person with a unique DNA.
Yeah.
But that allows that child, that girl child, the female child, to
continue and
develop the way she was meant to develop, seek therapy and deal with the trauma of what she just went through, and then have a natural, normal, healthy life
later on,
and have children on her terms and when her body is ready.
Yeah. No, I understand that, and I get that, but man, I mean, it's kind of like, I kind of hate to say it this way, but it kind of, because bad things happen, we don't end the rights of others. Now, that said, even I, as staunchly pro-life as I am willing to allow abortion begrudgingly 6 to 8 weeks. That time frame, 6 to 8 weeks before. I think anything after that, by that time you're talking the heart's formed, the brain's formed, the spine's formed. Most things are formed.
Right. And in that 6 to 8 week period, because this is where you and I had a discussion before, is when a woman...
You can miscarry,
miscarry and not even know you were pregnant.
Yeah.
And with pregnancy tests being the way they are now, where you can know you're pregnant 3 days before your missed period.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand that, but once you get up to 4 or 5 and especially 6 months, I'm under the impression it's like, okay, no.
No, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah. And we're kind of having to be assholes about it on the pro-life side, because it used to be safe, legal, and rare, and it's not that way anymore. It's become too acceptable.
I can agree with safe, legal, and rare, but that's not what it has become, and that's not what it is, and that's not what it ever was about.
Yeah, because and you've told the story, and I don't know if you want to tell it here, but you were encouraged.
I was.
To get an abortion.
And I chose not to.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I chose not to. I chose to place my baby up for adoption.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm one of the lucky ones. I was able to meet my daughter.
Yeah.
And she will be 30 this coming December. She is an EMT studying to be a paramedic. And she runs marathons to raise money for different charitable causes. And had I had that abortion, had I given into what my OBGYN had pushed me to do, yes, let me say that again, my OBGYN not only recommended, but pushed me to have an abortion because I was only 19.
Yeah.
She wouldn't be here. And there's no telling how many lives that she has saved or how many lives she will save because of the profession that she has chosen to go into.
Yeah.
And I could not be prouder of her.
Yeah. And I one of the arguments that has always kind of enraged me is this overpopulation argument. And I agree that overpopulation is a problem and that there's... I'm not particularly a people person. I'm not sure if you noticed. But...
Peopling is hard.
People are a strength. They're not a weakness. That's what I want to say about that. People
are a strength and it's not a weakness. And I understand where you're going with that. Because you look at China and they have how many billion population?
Yeah, they have I think it's up to 1.2
right.
billion.
And we have not quite a billion here in the U.S.?
No, we have about, as last I checked, it was about 340,000 million. Yeah.
Okay, million.
Now, if we had 340,000, we'd be...
There'd be all kinds of things, and we wouldn't have to worry about the flooding and the food production.
Yeah.
Forgive my... We'll get into this a little bit later, but I have med issues.
Yeah.
And that causes what I refer to as air bubbles.
Yeah.
Aside from the fact that I am a naturally blonde California native from Mendocino County, I have actual prescription medications that cause memory issues.
Oh, they do actually call... I didn't know they
yes.
cause medical issues. That.
So please forgive me. So we're talking 300 to 400 million in the U.S.
Yeah.
Now, when we take that into the abortion debate, Roe v. Wade came down in 71, 72.
Something like that.
After I was born.
Something like that. I couldn't tell you exactly.
Which...
It was the 70s, early 70s.
Yeah, which gives you an idea of where I'm at in my age range.
Not young.
But not completely old.
But not young.
I am not young. I refer to myself as old and broken. But I am not... I am Gen X.
Yeah.
I am on the older end of Gen X. And so Roe v. Wade came out after I was born. And in that time, the U.S. has started to show a negative population growth. We are not having enough births to make up for the number of deaths, which is why we have the issue we have with the baby boomers and the millennials. And Gen X in between kind of got caught in between, and we get kind of forgotten about.
Yeah. Although we are actually just a little bit above population growth as far as says.
Oh, wait, have we? Okay.
Yeah,
Last I heard, we were at a negative population growth.
No, we're a little bit above sustainable.
But it's in the wrong direction. If you listen to the founder of Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
Because...
But I'm the racist.
Right. And I am not, by any means, do I consider myself a racist.
Yeah.
I think people should be considered on their merit and what they can do. And equal opportunity employment should be, here's the standards. If you meet the standards, whether you're male, female, black, white, Asian, Latino, whatever, you get the job.
Yeah.
Period. There shouldn't be any adjustment of those standards. If you meet these standards, you can have the job.
Exactly.
But the founder of Planned Parenthood, and you can actually go on to their website, and there have been emails that have come forth, of which I can't really cite where they're at right now, so don't quote.
She was a big eugenics person.
Yes. And it's been all over YouTube, where it was about eugenics and depleting the African American population. But what has happened And what the statistics show is that more often than not, it is a white, middle-class female that has gone in to have an abortion for the sake of her career.
I'm not sure if that's actually true. I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but I'm pretty. Last things I read was that it was still primarily black children that were getting aborted. But I'd have to look that up.
Like I said, this is what I have understood over the course of many years, and statistics change and things change, and I may be wrong on that at this point, but at one point that's what the statistics were.
Yeah. But no, and that's why, for the love of God, can we at least not fund Planned Parenthood through freaking government funding? Like, Jesus. Like, that's all I like. But the money doesn't go towards abortion. Number one.
That's all they do.
Yeah.
And that's admittedly all they do.
Yeah, they sit there and they say they do other things, and no, not really.
Okay, so a couple of decades ago, my friends and I would go to. I was with I had just joined a LARPing organization. For those of you who don't know what LARP is, it's live action role play. And we would go to these conventions and we would LARP and we would role play and we would dress up in costumes. But do you know what happens at conventions?
Sex.
Lots of it.
Yeah.
So we would go to the Planned Parenthood and buy condoms for the hospitality room, which would keep a big bowl of condoms in the hospitality rooms to keep from what we referred to as con babies. From being
okay, never mind.
From being created. But we could go into the Planned Parenthood back then and buy a small bag, like a tiny Ziploc baggie for $5, like for $3, or you could get a big lunch bag full of them for $5. So what would we do? We'd go in and we'd each, like all 5 of us, we'd go in there and one at a time go buy the big $5 lunch bag full of condoms. Now, yes, the lady behind the counter was looking at us a little funny because, oh my gosh.
That's a lot of condoms.
That's a lot of condoms. And she probably thought we were prostitutes. But what it did is it gave us a way to contribute to the con. Not only did it help prevent pregnancies, which, by the way, is what condoms are for.
They're not really that effective on STDs.
And what they were designed for.
Yeah. By the way, I'm not saying not to rap if you're
right.
To prevent STDs.
Always, if you are single, if you are having sex, if you are doing sex with multiple partners, use a condom.
Yep.
One, not only is it going to prevent the pregnancy, which is going to prevent the abortion.
Yeah.
Which is what I think we should be teaching in schools, not just abstinence.
Yeah. Alyssa Milan. Okay, go on.
It will also help. It helps prevent the spread of the HIV virus.
Yeah.
It won't help prevent some of the other STDs, but for gay men, it does help prevent the spread of HIV.
Well, I mean, HIV is just through regular heterosexual sex. HIV is
become a thing.
Well, yeah, it's a thing. it's harder to transmit through heterosexual sex than it is through, well, anal.
Right. But my point being is this is what we were doing.
Yeah.
And we wanted to make that contribution.
Mm-hmm.
Now, which gets into HIV, AIDS treatment, and the medical system.
Yeah.
I saw an ad on TV the other day for an HIV preventative pill. Now, this is my issue with with the American medical system as it stands right now. Not that we have to have a pill to prevent AIDS, because if you can stop the transmission of HIV by taking a pill, by all means,
Take the pill.
take the pill. But there is a pill for everything.
Yeah.
And that's an issue, because it has become, and it has made our medical system about treating the symptoms rather than finding the cause.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, that's one of the biggest problems of our medical system is that I think the meme is, the first day of med school, the teachers on the board says a patient cured is a customer lost.
Which is a very sad way to look at things.
Yeah, it's kind of got me thinking, just looking at how things have been going. I won't get into, exactly what's going on, but what's going on with my dad right now. I'm pretty frustrated. He should have had something done already, and he should have had it done 2 or 3 times by now. But they haven't done it yet. It's kind of made me think about that meme. It's like, are they
intentionally doing this?
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think it is. I think it's just dealing with the bureaucracy, because it's got 3 different doctors right now going on with them. But
and that's part of the issue, is there are so many doctors involved.
Yeah. And one's in Indianapolis, one's in Greenfield, one's in Shelbyville. It's like, okay, eventually you guys are going to have to call each other and talking to
each other,
because you got a doctor for this organ, doctor for that organ. Yeah, you need specialty doctors, but it's like, okay, you guys need to talk together and figure out what the hell's going on.
Right.
I think that's a big problem too. But
okay, so you get into that and you talk about that. So let me talk about my situation.
Okay.
Because I feel free to go into more details about my situation.
Yeah, I just won't go into details because
right.
It's my dad.
It's your dad.
I don't know how comfortable he would be me talking about. So.
But it's similar with different
organs,
ailments.
Yeah.
We'll say that.
Yeah.
So I take somewhere between 25 and 30 pills a day.
Yeah.
And I give myself a shot once a week. Because the medical system treats the symptoms and not the disease.
Yeah.
I have had a kidney transplant, which, to be perfectly honest with you, is the best possible treatment for what I had wrong with my kidneys, which is called polycystic kidney disease. So I had a lot of cysts growing in my kidneys, and by the time they removed my kidneys in 2013, they had a combined weight of 10 pounds.
Whew. That's not good.
No.
For each kidney or together?
Together. Combined weight.
Okay.
Weight. The left one was 18 inches long and weighed 5.5 pounds.
Damn.
The right one was 15 inches long and weighed 4.5 pounds. So a combined weight of 10 pounds between my 2 kidneys. And they were failing. And I was on dialysis because of this. So really the best treatment for that is a transplant. But what you realize, what you learn when you get into the transplant system and you're reading the transplant literature, is they say transplant is not a cure, it's a treatment.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It's a lot of treatments. So I take 5 pills every day that are my anti-rejection meds that keep my kidney functioning.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, I have developed type 2 diabetes. Because of one of my anti-rejection meds causes an intolerance to sugar, which then developed into diabetes. I take I've got 4 different medications that are classed as anticonvulsant and or mood stabilizers, because the anticonvulsants and mood stabilizers cross over and are used for both. Because I had seizures as a child and never completely grew out of those. And I have mental issues. I suffer from anxiety, generalized anxiety. I suffer from massive depression, and I suffer from PTSD.
Yeah. And she's actually been diagnosed. She's not just saying.
Right. I've been diagnosed, and I see a psychologist once a month.
Yeah.
Or not once a month, but once a week, to discuss and treat these problems. Now let's talk about that. The PTSD, as we were talking about in a previous video or previous podcast, or however you want to refer to these recordings.
I think it was this one.
No, it was the abortion one. Comes from the fact that I was abused as a child.
Yeah.
I was sexually abused by my stepfather. I was mentally abused by my stepfather. I watched my stepfather mentally and emotionally abuse all of my siblings. Not just my 2 full brothers, but my half brother, my stepsister, and my stepbrother. Because he was an alcoholic. This led to PTSD. I was bullied in school. And I'm not talking your average, oh my God, give me your lunch money bully. I was held by 2 people at one point as a line of others came through and punched me in the stomach to see how big the bruise would get. I was swung in a circle in the 4th grade by my hair. Like, you think it's a joke, and they do it on WWE by the feet all the time. This was not a stunt. This was not a cartoon joke. The girl took my hair and swung me in a circle. And when I tried to defend myself, I was the one that would get in trouble by the teachers and those that were on yard duty. All of this has led to PTSD,
Mm-hmm.
which led to anxiety. The depression comes from the consistent and chronic pain that I'm in from my transplant, because there was nerve damage in my hip from the transplant.
Mm-hmm.
I also suffer from arthritis in my hips and my spine, and I have several out-of-place discs. That kind of pain is depressing.
Oh, yeah.
Because there were days where I would wake up and I couldn't stand up straight in the morning.
Yeah.
And then, so you have the generalized anxiety and you have the PTSD, which then leads to toxic relationships.
Yeah.
And I went through 2 marriages that were toxic. And I am willing to admit that some of that was my fault. Some of the toxicity came from me because I didn't know and wasn't treating my mental illnesses. Some of it came from how my husbands were treating me, which led to more PTSD.
Yeah.
But the best they can do right now is throw pills at me. And that's what they do, is they throw pills, they throw meds, and I sit down and I talk with a psychologist once a week. And that's the best the medical care system can do for me right now, is throw medication at me to treat the symptoms rather than try and find the underlying cause for the arthritis or the seizure disorders and treat the actual causes. And that comes from where I was getting at with the HIV prevention pill.
Yeah.
Throw a pill at it because it makes the medical care system money. You have to go back and see your doctor to refill your prescription, which then makes the pharmaceutical companies money because you have to buy the prescription. And then the doctors are getting kickbacks on the newer medications when they write more prescriptions.
Yeah.
And you get caught in that system.
It's a loop.
And it's a loop. And I think it's part of why we have such a huge mental health issue in this country. Because you do start suffering from depression when you get caught in that loop.
Yeah, I mean, it's very frustrating. I mean, just dealing with, like, I'll go ahead and say this, like, I had to take my dad up for a blood test the other day. When we went to the place, they didn't have the paperwork, and we spent 4 hours, I think it was, going to different places in that hospital, trying to figure out what we needed to do. And they would send us to one place, and we'd go to another place, and, you know, here it is, my dad's sick, can't walk very well. You know, he's getting frustrated. You know, it's very depressing, I guess is the best way.
It really is. It's very depressing. And then you have the medical bills on top of that, because I currently am sitting on about $6,000 in medical debt.
Yeah.
From when I was on previous insurance. My current insurance through the state of Indiana is very good and understands that there is no way that I, even if I had a job, would be able to pay for the kind of medication I'm taking.
Yeah.
Because there is just one of my medications without insurance is $1,000 a month. And
is it experimental?
No. It is a commonly used specialty medication. So it is not experimental. I am not on any experimental drugs.
Okay. That's ridiculous.
But it's because it's a specialty medication, and it's one of my anti-rejection meds.
Yeah. And
those are considered specialty medications, which the insurance companies don't like to cover. And they are expensive, and the drug companies can get away with charging more for them because there are fewer people taking them, because they're considered specialty medications.
Yeah.
So I think that's where, when I get into the issues with our healthcare system, and I agree that there needs to be reform in the healthcare system.
Yeah, we need massive reform.
But I think it needs to take into account that the pharmaceutical companies have so much control over the healthcare system right now.
Yeah.
That it's overwhelming for the patient. And I agree that the money that the pharmaceutical companies are making allow for the discoveries and the development of some of the medications that are now on the market that help a lot of these conditions, but they're still just treating the symptoms, and they're not looking for
the underlying cause,
a treatment or a cure for the underlying cause.
Yeah. No, I understand that. I mean, that's why I get so frustrated a lot of times with a lot of people who support single payer or really liked Obamacare. It was so frustrating because the biggest things our healthcare system needed was tort reform. Take on the pharmaceutical companies, which Trump tried to do, but there was no movement in Congress. So, what can you do about that?
Well, because the pharmaceutical country.
Yeah.
The pharmaceutical countries, right? Yeah, companies.
Companies.
Have.
And he got a little bit.
Lobbyists
Yeah.
that pay for the congressmen to vote the way they do.
He did get, I forget exactly what, he did get a few common prescriptions down. We need to, the biggest thing he's trying to push for right now is generic, allowing people to make knockoff
Generic prescriptions. And there is an allowance for that. There are a lot of generic prescriptions out there, and the insurance companies are more likely to pay for the generics. Some of them, however, that what happens is when it's approved is they get an exclusive on the formula for so many years before it can go into a generic.
And that's what he's been trying to take on, and not to a lot of success, because it's got to come from Congress.
One, it's got to go through Congress, and two, I kind of understand, because you have to give the pharmaceutical companies a chance to recoup the money they put into
the
research and development, into the R&D.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean insulin should be as high as it is.
No.
It doesn't mean that the anti-rejection meds that all transplant patients take
should be as high as
they are, because it's not just because basically what anti-rejection meds are, so is they're immunosuppressants. They suppress the immune system so that it can't attack the new organ that obviously is not a part of your body because it's got a separate, unique genetic identification code from your own. And it's not just transplant patients that are taking these immunosuppressants. People with lupus take immunosuppressants because their immune system attacks their own body.
Yeah.
And they're paying the same price that I do for these immunosuppressants. And they have to have those to live. They have to have them. They have to suppress their immune system because it's attacking their own body.
Yeah.
So while I understand, to get back to where we were, while I understand the pharmaceutical companies needing to recoup the money that went into the R&D of these developments and these prescriptions and these drugs and these treatments, making that time shorter so that it can get into the generic prescriptions so that more people can afford them is a good thing.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And one thing I will say, in quasi defense, a lot of people don't, point to other countries and how, cheaper their medicines are, and they don't really realize how much of that comes from our medical system, how much we actually produce, medical supplies, pills.
Right.
They don't realize just how if our medical system were to ever collapse, the world's medical system would collapse.
Right. No, and I understand. And they talk about how cheap, like Monsanto and Bayer and some of these other, Eli Lilly, can sell some of their medical, some of these prescriptions for overseas in third world countries. what they don't understand is that they write off the difference as humanitarian aid.
Yeah, they do. But then that goes into another problem. I'm not a big fan of marijuana, but you have Eli Lilly here in Indiana giving donations to Eric Holcomb, the governor, and he said medical marijuana ain't gonna happen.
Right.
It's not hard to figure out why.
Right. Well, and here's my stance on that. To a certain extent, I agree with medical marijuana for certain conditions.
Yeah.
Full-blown AIDS patients.
Oh, yeah.
Cancer patients. Where you're in a situation where you can't...
Or hell, just even a pain alternative.
Well, or pain alternatives. But what I'm talking about is these marijuana, when eaten, is a very good natural anti-nausea medication. So you mix it into your food, like your brownies or whatever.
Yeah.
And it becomes an anti-nausea medication. And so you give an AIDS patient, or you give a cancer patient who ends up throwing up their pills or their meds, so they don't get any use out of them. Let them choose. You give them this brownie that's got the marijuana baked into it. They're not going to get as nauseous, and their medications are going to stay down, and they're going to feel better.
Yeah, they're going to be able to eat, which of course we get build up their strength back up.
But build up their strength and help their immune system.
Yeah.
And I think that is a much better alternative to some of the chemical anti-nausea medications, because I take one every once in a while to help with my stomach, because I take so many pills that makes me tired and makes me sleepy. But all of my pills have do not drive a car until you know how this medication is going to affect you. Do not drink alcohol with this medication. May cause tiredness, may cause sleepiness, may cause dizziness on every one of my medication levels. If there was natural alternatives to those that I knew that I could take safely, that weren't going to interact with each other,
yeah, you do that.
I would totally be for that.
Yeah. And that's why, that was kind of off topic, but I've kind of used to be, I was very hard anti-marijuana, mostly because of my personal experience with my brother and all that stuff. But I've kind of relented. We've lost, and it's not that bad. But that's kind of off topic.
Well, no, not really, because it does play into our medical system.
Yeah. The price of prescriptions is so high, a lot of people are turning to heroin.
Right. A lot of people are turning to heroin because it's cheaper to go get heroin for your pain meds than it is to go to the pharmacy and get a supply of oxycodone.
Yeah.
And, oh, by the way the laws are written now, because of the opioid crisis in the U.S., you can only get so many of those pills. So somebody who has fibromyalgia, who has arthritis, who's in chronic pain, and takes their medications properly, can't get their full 30-day dose because the law says no because of the opioid crisis.
Yeah. And there is an opioid crisis.
I'm not saying there's not.
Yeah, I know. But people, I know, I understand. We're kind of in a catch-22. We restrict it, then people who need it don't get it. If we let it flow, then people are going to overdose.
Right.
We're in a no-win situation right now.
And I think that's really part of the problem.
Yeah.
And I will agree with that. Because while I understand, as somebody with chronic pain, I need my pain meds. I don't want to be restricted on the number of, there are some medications where you go in and you can only get 10 pills, and the insurance will only will only pay for them once a month.
Yeah.
10 pills does not cover 1 month.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in chronic pain.
Yeah.
So what is that person supposed to do? But on the flip side, you get people who get a prescription for 30 pills when they go to the emergency room because they broke their leg and they're not going to use all 30 pills, and then those pills end up on the street.
Yeah.
And I see that catch-22, and I get that catch-22, and I understand that.
Yeah. And I don't know what the solution... Well, I do think legalizing some of these other drugs would help. I do think that taking on some of the pharmaceutical companies would help. And I also think we need to... It's so hard, but we need to discourage the culture of drug use, I guess.
Yes.
And that's speaking of someone who loves his alcohol. But I've cut back, mostly because I've gotten older. And I mean, it's hard to tell 22, 23-year-old Tony, hey, you're drinking so much and you're contributing to this culture that is causing this situation. Even though, I mean, me going out and drinking isn't the worst thing in the world. It is part of that drug culture. But you tell 23, 24-year-old Tony, he's going to tell you, fuck off and go get another drink.
Right. And I think there comes an instance, too, where people have to admit that some of the things that we don't consider drugs are drugs and are addictive.
Like caffeine.
Caffeine.
Coke. Although I will say, if we get marijuana legalized, damn it, I want cocaine legalized, and I want Coke back in Coke. God damn it. This is America. This is a tradition. Sometimes I'm drinking a Coke and it tastes so good and I really want another one. I'm thinking, are they certain that they got the Coke out? They certain? Because, man, I really want another one. You,
what they were using wasn't actually...
cocaine. It was...
It was an extract of the coke... the coca leaf.
Yeah.
Which is what is refined into cocaine.
Yeah.
So it wasn't anywhere near as strong as people would like to think it was.
Yeah. But they did take it out, man.
They did.
It's still addictive, though.
The addictiveness in modern sodas is the other thing I think that people need to look at as a drug, and that's sugar.
Yeah, sugar. And I'll admit, that's something I've kind of gotten onto recently is, man, I'd sit there and I drink a lot of sugars. I really do.
And it's not just, but it's everywhere.
And if I don't cut back, I'm probably going to get diabetes.
I mean, and it's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's hiding in everything.
Yeah, it really is.
Did you know that McDonald's uses sugar in their hamburgers?
That doesn't surprise me.
And that it is also, the French fries are sugar coated to make them get that golden brown color when they're cooked. And that's what makes them taste so good. God,
they are good.
They
Especially
are good.
when they're fresh. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
And they got the right amount of salt on them. Oh my God.
But that's the point, is Americans, by and large, are addicted to two things: caffeine
and sugar.
And that adds to so many of our health problems. And if we could deal with those two issues alone, I think it would take a lot of the strain off the healthcare system.
Yeah, it really would, especially sugar. I mean, it's sugar. I mean, what happened is, I guess years ago, everyone got into a fat-free kick, and the fats aren't really the problem.
No.
It's the sugars.
Well, what they did is they decided that fat was why we were overweight, and so they pulled the fat out of everything. But to replace the taste of the fat, they started adding sugars.
Mm-hmm.
And sugars made the situation worse.
Yeah, it really did. I people listening, like, guys, the fat really isn't the problem. Like, I'm not saying go out and deep fry a tub of lard.
No. Okay, so
But
in moderation, fat is not an issue. But use natural fats.
yeah,
You're gonna hear people say this, that, and the other, and like everything is bad for you. But what I have found in my weight loss journey, in my journey through treating my diabetes, is I would rather use real butter that comes from milk and milk fat that my body knows how to process
than the fake stuff.
than margarine, which is one ingredient off of plastic and was originally created as a lubricant for jet engines.
It's not our fault it's edible. So it's probably some military engineer, I'm guessing. It's like,
Well, what happened is they created this stuff as a lubricant for jet engines, and it didn't work for jet engines, so they had to find a way to recoup the cost on the R&D. So they're like, okay, so let's feed it to people.
have you put it on a biscuit? It's wonderful.
Now, granted, the formulas
You're fired, Tim.
the formulas have changed
Yeah.
a ton since then.
Yeah.
But it's still one ingredient away from being plastic. And you are putting this on your food and you are eating this. How much good is that doing for your health?
Probably not a lot. No. And that goes into a lot of the problems, you know. A lot of this like margarine is cheaper than butter.
Yeah.
You can get a big old tub of margarine for about the price you can get a couple sticks of butter, real butter. And I mean, that goes for everything, you know.
But
You can get a gigantic 2 liter of Coke for $1. A bottle of water costs you $1. Depending on where you get it.
depending on what kind of water you're buying and
Yeah.
where you get it. No, and I agree with you. They have made it cost effective
To eat,
for
like-
Americans to feed their caffeine and sugar addictions.
Yeah. And I don't know.
Which is actually part of the problem.
Yeah, and I don't know how we get out of it. Well, how we get out of it is we talk about it, and then
we make people aware of what they're doing and what they're eating, and read your labels. And had I understood, yes, I'm on a medication that causes an intolerance to sugar that developed into diabetes. But had I understood what I know now about carbs, carbohydrates, and how that converts
to sugar.
to sugar 4 years ago when I started taking this medication, or 4.5 years ago when I started taking this medication, I'd be in a very different place than I am now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's what more people need to understand.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to change. Like when I got out of high school, I weighed 300 pounds. I lost about 100 pounds so I could join the Navy, and then I stayed in shape up until I got out of the Navy, and for a couple of years after I got out of the Navy, and then a lot of it kind of got into some trouble with school, and things made me sad. So I said fuck it, and I started drinking and eating more.
You basically ate your emotions.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah. And now I'm a bigger boy.
Well, and I say that, and I understand that, because when I got my transplant, the day they did my transplant, I weighed in at the dialysis center at 130 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, that's a little low for somebody of my height.
Mm-hmm.
I should weigh according to the BMI, which is
Yeah, I'm not sold on that one.
sold on that, I should weigh about 140, but that is
They say I should weigh 180, and I'm like,
way too skinny for a female of my height, because
Yeah.
I'm about 5'8".
yeah.
Now, where I feel comfortable is somewhere around 150, 160.
Yeah.
But when the day they did my transplant 4.5 years ago, I weighed 130 pounds. Last September, so almost a year ago, when I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, I weighed 215 pounds. And that had a lot to do with the sugar addiction.
Uh-huh.
It had a lot to do with the fact that I didn't understand the difference between carbohydrates.
And sugars.
Well, sugars and carbohydrates are the same thing.
Yeah.
But you have to understand how to eat them, when to eat them, and how much of them to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And how to balance those with protein to keep your system in balance.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of the depression, I was eating my depression. I was binging on M&Ms, and I was eating chocolate fudge brownies, and I was eating fudge, and I was doing all of these things that I shouldn't have been doing, but I didn't understand that I shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah.
Because I was feeding that sugar addiction.
Mm-hmm.
That then my body couldn't deal with because of the medication that was causing the intolerance to sugars, which sped up the development of diabetes. I think I still would have gotten diabetes had it not been.
Eventually, but...
Right. It just wouldn't have been as fast.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I can relate to that. I mean, sitting up in my apartment, nothing to do. It's like, well, I'm going to order a pizza. Like, for $8 and sit
Right.
there and eat a pizza. Like, holy shit, I just ate a whole pizza.
Yeah, you just ate a whole pizza. And you're like, and my whole pizza was only $8, and I couldn't have fed myself on that for cheaper.
Yeah.
Oh. We've been going for an hour.
Hour and 7 minutes. Yeah, this we started talking about abortion, and we went into the healthcare thing.
Okay.
I don't know. I could talk about this for a while, but I think this is a good place to end it.
Right, I could go on and on and on and on. You could get me on a soapbox with the healthcare system because of what I've been through.
Yeah, no, I understand, and just my personal experience. When this isn't exactly the same, but when I finally got my shit together and went back to school, I ended up going to one of their psychiatric help. First thing they did was say, you want a pill? And it's like, no. That's the first thing they did. They offered me pills, and I was just like, I don't need pills. I just need to get over this. I need to deal with this.
Right, and I'm not saying that medication doesn't have its place.
Yeah.
Because
It does.
in some cases, it really does. You need the medication, especially when it comes to, like, mental health issues. You need the people are like, well, you don't need a pill to fix your mental health issues. Just get over it. But it's not that easy.
Yeah.
Sometimes that pill rebalances the chemicals in your brain, which then help you feel better.
Yeah.
And it's no different than a diabetic taking insulin. Or it's no different than somebody with seizures taking an anticonvulsant.
Yeah.
But I think by and large Americans are over-medicated and they throw pills at everything. And that's not...
And maybe I didn't need pills, and maybe I still do need pills, but they met me once and they wanted to throw pills at me.
And see, and that's...
It's like, no.
Where I draw the line. Like, you should have at least had several sessions with your therapist before they said, hey,
Yeah.
you need medication.
Yeah, and I'm a lot better now
Right.
than I was back then. But anyway, that's all I have to say on the matter.
No, it's not.
Well, no, it's not. But it's...
This particular video has gone on for a very long time, and we could both go on for a couple of more hours on this topic. However,
for the sake of semi-brevity and my mouth
and all of your sanities,
and my hydration,
our sanity, and your sanity, I think we're gonna stop this. Like, subscribe, hit the notification button. That helps every YouTube creator.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a hot topic. So if you do have questions, if you do have comments, if you have a particular topic in the medical system you'd like to talk about, drop it in the comments below, and we'll look at those and maybe do a video on answering your questions or talking about that discussion topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, we're not above you. In fact, you're probably above us.
We are here to facilitate a discussion.
We're trying to have a real conversation,
right?
And hopefully make you all realize that I'm super right, and that you all just need to accept the Lord and Savior, God Emperor Trump, into your life, and everything's so much better.
Let me translate that. What he's saying is, we're here to make sure that everybody understands there is no right or wrong. We all have an opinion, and that an open discourse on those opinions might come to a solution.
But as a man, as a mortal man, am I really justified in questioning the God that is Trump? Anyways, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, and we will see you next time.
Yep. Bye.